Alright guys, today we're going to go over the last part of the post-test study guide. So it's part 3, 37 to 45. Alright. These are probably the hints that we're going to use to do these last 8 problems. The biggest thing is standard form. So remember that it means there's no parentheses. And you're going to find A, B, and C. And then you're going to find the vertex, which is the opposite of B over 2A. Then you're going to make an XY chart. Remember, when you make your XY chart, the middle is your vertex. Vertex form has one set of parentheses. You're going to find H and K. You're going to find the vertex, which is just H and K. You're going to make your little dotted line. Then you're going to make an XY chart, and you're going to reflect over your axis of symmetry. Intercept form has two sets of parentheses. You're still going to find A, P, and K. And you're going to find the vertex using the vertex formula for intercept form, which is P plus Q over 2. Then you're going to use the XY chart. P is the first point. P over Q plus 2. The vertex is the second point. Q is the last point. All right, so number 37 says write a function whose graph is a translation. That means it's going to be moving the graph of the function y equals x squared. Well, y equals x squared, if you guys don't remember, looks like this. Remember, it's a u. It's just the original graph we've ever did with parabolas. So that's what the graph looks like. All right, they want to know a translation. Well, remember, the h moves it left and right, and k moves it up and down. So I'm going to be using vertex form. I'm using vertex form. I'm just going to pick an A and a K. So I'm going to say y equals, we're going to keep A1. I'm going to say x minus 2 squared plus 3. So the minus 2 moves the graph 2 units to the right. And then the plus 3 moves the graph 3 units up. So this is y equals x squared on the left. And this is y equals x minus 2 squared plus 3. So I go right 2, up 3, put a dot. And on the right is my new graph. So see how this graph went from here up. That's the translation. So really, to do 37, you just have to pick an H and a K and know that, remember, even though it looks like negative 2, you're actually going to move it to the right 2. So that's really the only main difference. And that's it for 37. All right, so 38, pretty simple. It says the height h in meters of a falling object is given by this equation. H equals negative 1/2 g, which stands for gravity, t squared, which stands for time, plus h sub 0, which h is the initial height. G is the acceleration due to gravity, and t is the time in seconds. So g is 9.8, so I'm going to put 9.8 in right there. H sub 0 is the initial height, that's going to go right there. This is going to be the ending height, so that's going to be 0. So I'm going to write my equation. It's going to say 0 equals negative 1/2. Instead of g, I'm going to put 9.8. And I don't know t. Plus 1,960. Alright, so that's pretty easy to start. Now I'm going to do some multiplying. I'm going to multiply these two together. I'm going to get 0 equals negative 4.9 t squared plus 1960. So to find t, we're just going to do PEMDAS backwards. So this is just a PEMDAS backwards problem once we plug in the numbers. So I don't see any subtraction, I see addition. That's why the first thing I'm going to do is minus 1960 from both sides. So then I get negative 1,960 equals negative 4.9 t squared. So now I'm going to have to, there's no addition, no division, I have to get rid of the multiplication. How do I get the multiplication? By division. So I divide both sides by negative 4.9. So when I divide both sides by negative 4.9, I end up with the left side's going to be 400 positive. So I get 400 equals t squared. Now, I have to get rid of the exponent, so I have to square root both sides. I get t equals plus or minus 20. Now, since we're talking about time, it's just going to be 20, not negative, so just 20 seconds. That's it for 38. Alright, so it says explain the difference between the set of real numbers and the set of complex numbers. So all real numbers are complex, but not all complex numbers are real. And here are some examples. Negative 5 is a real number. It's also complex, because I can write it as 5 plus 0i. But 5i is only complex, not real. That's it for 39. Alright, for the complex number 5 minus 8i, identify the real part and the imaginary part. 5 is the real part. Eight I is the imaginary part. We're going to use the absolute value of a complex number, which says this. If you have the absolute value, you're going to take the square root of a squared plus b squared. Remember, absolute value is always real, always positive, so I ignore the negative sign and the I. So I'm going to put the square root of 5 squared plus 8 squared, so the square root of 25 plus 64, so the square root of 89. And that's it. To make sure there's nothing that goes into 89, which there are no perfect numbers that go into it, so that's it. Just square root of 89, done. Oh, 41 says plot 7 minus 5i on the complex plane. Create the complex plane yourself. Pretty easy. I'm going to make a plane. Well, that could probably be a little bit better. So I'm going to make a plane. It's terrible. A little bit better. So the left and right is real. The up and down is imaginary. Make sure you label these so you don't lose any points for that. So I'm going to write 7 and down 5. So that's 7 minus 5i right there. That's it. All right, 42 is y equals 2x plus 3 squared minus 5. So this is vertex form, which means we're doing ax minus h squared plus k. So we want to find, so step 1, you're going to find a, h, and k. So there's a, there's h, there's k. So a is 2. H, remember that's a dirty h hanging out of their x, so it's not 3, it's actually negative 3. And k is negative 5. Step 2. Find the vertex. The vertex is just h and then k, so I just put negative 3, negative 5. I'm actually going to plot that. So I'm going to go left 3 and then down 5. I'm going to put my dotted line there. Remember, that's our axis of symmetry. You don't have to do that. You only have to do that dotted line if you want to do a 3-point XY chart. So make my XY chart. Now, if you want to put negative 3 in the middle and do 5 points, you totally can. I'm just going to do negative 3, negative 2, negative 1. I always add, so I do negative 3 plus 1 and then negative 2 plus 1. Now I'm just going to plug those in. So I'm going to say negative 3, negative 5. I do like to plug in negative 3 just to make sure it works. So I will plug it in, because sometimes people make sign mistakes, and it's actually very helpful to check this because it does work out to be -5. Now I'm going to plug in -2. I do 2 and then -2 plus 3 minus 5. So I have -2 plus 3 is 1. 1 squared is 1 times 2 is 2. 2 minus 5 is -3. And then I plug in -1. -1 plus 3 is 2. 2 squared is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 minus 5 is +3. So now I'm going to plot my points. I'm going to go -2, down 3. Put a dot. I like to reflect it over right then and there. Remember, so I count 1 block away from the dotted line, 1 block away, make the same dot. Now I do this one. I go left 1, up 3. 2 blocks away from the dotted line, so 2 blocks away from the dotted line. That's why I don't have to do 5 points. Now when I make this, make sure that the bottom is a U. So the bottom has to be a U. And that's it. Done for 42. All right, number 43, we have y equals 2x squared minus 4x minus 2. This is standard form because there are no sets of parentheses. So that means step 1, we're going to find a, b, and c. So a is 2, b is -4, c is -2. Step 2 says you're going to find the vertex. So I'm going to do the opposite of b, so the opposite of -4 all over 2 times 2. Remember, put the bottom in parentheses or do the top and bottom separately where I get 4 over 4, which is 1. So I'm going to make an XY chart. Put 1 in the middle. I'm going to add 1 to get 2, add 1 to get 3. I'm going to subtract 1, subtract 1. I'm going to plug these in. I'm going to plug in 1. So I'm going to plug in 1 for x. Got y equals 2. Instead of x, I put 1 squared minus 4 times 1 minus 2. I end up with 2 minus 4, which is -2, minus 2 more, which is -4. Now I'm going to do 0. I like to do 0 because it's easy. I end up with -2. Now I don't have to plug in 2 because I'm going to put -2 right there and rainbow it. You can either put 3 or -1. I'll do -1. So y equals 2 times -1 squared minus 4 times -1 minus 2. So I get 2 plus 4, which is 6, minus 2, which is +4. Once again, I rainbow that all the way over so I don't have to plug in 3. If you want to plug in 3, you totally can. So now I got 1, -4, dot. 0, -2, dot. 2, -2, dot. -1 up to 4. 3 up to 4. That's supposed to be U. Looks a little bit better. And that's it for 43. Done. All right, 43 is another version of standard form because there are no parentheses. So step 1, we're going to find A, B, and C. A is -1, B is +2, C is 1. Step 2, I'm going to find the vertex. I'm going to say the opposite of B all over 2A. So I'm going to have the opposite of B, which is -2, all over 2 times -1. So I'm going to end up with -2 over -2, which is +1. Remember, put the bottom in parentheses unless you're doing the top and bottom separately. So remember, that one is the middle of your XY chart. So make an XY chart. Put the 1 in the middle. I add 1 to get 2. I add 1 to get 3. I subtract 1. I subtract 1. Now I'm going to start plugging stuff in. So for the vertex, I always do that first. I'm going to have negative in parentheses 1 squared plus 2 times 1 plus 1. So I have -1 plus 2 is 1, plus another 1 is positive 2. So I have 1, 2. Now I plug in 0, I end up getting 1. I rainbow that 0 all the way over to 2, so I get 1 again. Now I'm going to plug in negative 1. You can also plug in 3. I end up with y equals the opposite of negative 1 squared, plus 2 times negative 1, plus 1. So I have negative 1 minus 2, which is negative 3, plus 1, which is negative 2. Once again, I rainbow that all the way over. So now I'm going to plot my points. Go right 1 up to 2, put a dot. 0, 1, put a dot. 2, 1, put a dot. I'm going to go left 1 down to 2, then right 3 down 2. Once again, this has to be a smooth U, not a V. And that's it for 44. So remember, 44 is not a multiple choice question on your study guide. It will be on your post test, but on your study guide, it is not a multiple choice question. All right, so that's important. So just pick one of those 4 graphs. It doesn't matter which one, and just graph it on that one of those 4 graphs. And that's it. All right, 45 is intercept form. Because it's got 2 sets of parentheses. So step 1, we're going to find A, P, and Q. Remember, we don't trust P and Q because they're hanging out their X. So A is negative 1. P, although it looks like negative 2, is actually positive 2. And Q, although it looks like negative 4, is actually positive 4. Step 2 is we're going to find the vertex. So you do P plus Q, remember that's in parentheses, all over 2. So I do 2 plus 4 all over 2. Remember 2 plus 4 is 6. 6 over 2 is 3. So then I'm going to make my XY chart. So I make an XY chart. I do 2 and then 0 because whatever P is, I put on my chart. Now I'm going to put 3 and put 4 on my chart. That's also 0. Now, you don't have to just pick these points only. You can also pick any. You can also pick more if like you wanted to add 1. You could. You don't have to. So I'm going to plug in 3. So I have to plug in 3. I say y equals negative 3 minus 2. 3 minus 4. I end up with negative 1 times negative 1. So it's going to be positive 1. And so I really only need 3, 1. Put it there. And that, remember, I have to have my dotted line if I'm doing a smaller XY chart. But if you have 5 points, you don't need it. Like, let's say you plugged in 1. So I plug in 1, I end up with 1 minus 2, which is negative 1. 1 minus 4 is negative 3. So I end up with negative 3. So I could do that. And then I wouldn't need my dotted line. Then I could actually rainbow that over or put 5 in and get negative 3. And that's it. That's it for 45, and that finishes your study guide. All right, guys, things to remember for your post-test. All right, post-test is Tuesday. It's part 1 is going to be numbers 1 through 16. Wednesday, part 2 is going to be numbers 17 through 36. Thursday is going to be part 3, numbers 37 through 45. If you need more time on those, come see me during study hall, like Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. So that's something you could do. So that's something to be aware of. Remember, don't leave anything blank. So don't leave anything blank. Even the multiple choice questions show work. I cannot give you partial credit unless you show work. All right, even if it's a multiple choice question, you think it's right. Show some work so I can give you partial credit. All right. Use your hint page. Anytime you can use the hints, you can start the problem correctly. You're guaranteed to get 2 out of 4 points. So that's a big deal. It's a lot of points. Every time that I've seen a kid not hit their target score for this post-test, it was mostly because they left stuff blank. So try not to leave blank. Try to attempt every problem. Remember, you get 1 point for showing me math that looks like this year. That means you try it, make an honest attempt on the problem. You get a 2nd point for using the proper hint. You get a 3rd point for coming close and a 4th point for being correct. Finally, I will grade your post-test study guide Tuesday. So that's 30 points. In addition to your 2 progress checks. So the post-test study guides were 50 points. Right? If you have any questions, comment on the Google Classroom and I'll talk about it on Tuesday before the post-test. Alrighty? Thanks.